And we are live. What's going on, everybody? Happy Saturday night. We are coming to you live from the Romero room here at beautiful Lincoln Point, suburb of Evansville, Indiana. Beautiful Evansville, Indiana. So we're going to try this again. Tried to do this last weekend on the weekend before 4th of July. Bad fucking decision. That did not work out. I've never been so angry and just annoyed by fireworks in my life. I was so thrown off. I was shook last week. I mean, it was literally, it sounded like World War III was breaking out right outside my window here. So if you were viewing last week, if you were expecting the top 10 last weekend, I apologize. I simply could not do it. I just couldn't. Maybe that's not professional of me. Maybe I should have just pushed through, but I couldn't form a fucking cognitive sentence halfway through that list. There was so much going on outside. It was ridiculous. But hopefully, we picked a better night to do it. The 4th of July has passed. There should be no more fireworks. If there are, I'm calling the police. And because that's, you can't do it other than 4th of July around here. But yeah, I mean, goddamn, it sounded like the opening of Monday Night Raw back in the 90s outside, and I just couldn't do it. But we're gonna try again tonight. Hopefully, no more skyflowers, no more fireworks, and we should be able to push straight through this sucker tonight. The top 10 Romero Heroes. So last month I did the top 10 Romero villains, which was topped by the wonderful Joe Pilato as Captain Rhodes in Day of the Dead. And I've done, this will be my third top 10 list that I've done here on my channel so far. And the first two spots are I did the, of course, the last one was the top 10 villains, and the one before that was the top 10 Romero zombies. And both of those lists were topped by Day of the Dead. Bub was the number one zombie. Captain Rhodes was the number one villain. Will they three-peat? Could this be a three-peat tonight? Because in terms of heroes, when you think of Day of the Dead, I mean, of course, Laurie Cardille, Sarah, probably the most sane, strongest, quick to act character in Day of the Dead. You got your reluctant heroes like Terry Alexander and Jarlath Conroy as Billy and John. So I would consider them reluctant heroes. Could you consider Logan a hero of some type? Yeah, he was out of his mind, but his goal, his end goal, his work was that's an interesting conversation to have. Was it a gesture by on his part, or was he just so far gone at this point that he literally took a zombie and made a pet out of it? He had his own pet zombie. He got to play mommy to this zombie. So was he really trying to go for something that would solve the problem, fix the problem, help everybody out, or was it more of a vanity thing for him to show that he could do this? And I don't know. That's an interesting conversation we could have another time. But tonight we're having the conversation top 10 Romero heroes. Also want to get into the brand new 4K release of Creepshow that Scream put out. I did end up picking that up. I really wasn't planning on it. But I did end up picking it up and checking it out. Was it worth it? Was it worth the upgrade? Because Scream Factory already did a really great Blu-ray release of Creepshow a few years back, and honestly, I was perfectly satisfied with that. But I was talked into picking up this 4K because I heard a lot of really good things about it from a lot of people, that a lot of opinions that I trust were just glowing about it. So I ended up picking it up. Was it worth the upgrade? We'll discuss. We'll find out here in a little bit. And plus, I'm going to make an announcement on what next week's show is. I guess I'll go ahead and do that now, first and foremost, get it out of the way. Next week's stream here on the channel, we're going to be doing an in memoriam, in remembrance of George Romero, as next Sunday is going to be the 6-year anniversary of his death. It's hard to believe that it's been 6 years already. So much has changed in my life in those 6 years. But I remember vividly where I was the moment that I heard So yeah, we'll get into all that next week. So that's what next week's show is going to be dedicated exclusively to Romero memories and thoughts and stories and whatnot. And I'm going to open up the forum if anybody wants to hop on with me next weekend. I'm going to do it next Sunday, 10 p.m. Eastern time, 9 p.m. Central. Um, it's going to be Remembering George, the Sunday night stream next week. So if anybody wants to hop on and share some stories, thoughts, just give your overall memories of George as a filmmaker, what he meant to not only horror film but just film in general, and specifically independent film. So I'm going to open up the forum. I'm going to put a link in the comments for anybody and everybody that want to join in and just share their thoughts and memories of George on the 6-year anniversary of his passing. Um, so it's not going to be. We could make it a lighter show than what it feels like it will be now. Because any opportunity to share stories and talk about George Romero, I'm there. That's where I want to be. If I'm not a part of it, I'd love to just sit and listen to it. So I'm like I said, opening up the floor. If anybody wants to hop on with me, let me know. Shoot me a comment, send me an email. If you're on my Facebook, you can send me a message on Facebook. However you want to get a hold of me, let me know that you want to be a part of this thing next weekend. And if not, it'll just be me probably on here blabbering about George Romero for 2 hours straight. So if that's what you want to watch, that's one thing. But if not, come on the stream with me next weekend and let's share some stories and theories and all that good stuff. And remembering George. Man, 6 years. It's hard to believe. It's been almost 6 years since he passed, but but like I said, a lot has changed in my life, and really in terms of like Romero fandom, I was at a completely different place then that I am now. But we'll get into that next week. I'll kind of tell the whole origin story of how I became just so enamored and such a fan of Romero in general. Just starting all the way back when I was in elementary school, um, and we'll just kind of tell the story and I'll just spill my guts, I guess. So we're gonna do that next week. If anybody wants to hop on, let me know next week. Remembering George Sunday night stream. So yeah, as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, we'll go ahead and get into it. The new Scream Factory 4K release of Creepshow. Like I said, I'm not sure when the Blu-ray came out, but like I said, I was pretty happy with the Blu-ray. When did this come out? They did a really fantastic Blu-ray. It doesn't say. I'm just gonna say probably about 5 years ago. I would guess when this Blu-ray came out of Creepshow. Sorry, I'm hitting the microphone there. And it's like I said, it's a hard cover. Comes a little book. It's pretty cool stuff in it, and Blu-ray looked fantastic when it came out. So it was really hard for me to justify dropping the money to pick up the new 4K transfer because, this was a 4K scan, but it wasn't a 4K. It was just a regular Blu-ray. So it was hard for me to really kind of wrap my head around how much better could this really look. And I know Scream Factory kind of has a bit of a reputation of just kind of transferring over old 4K scans from previous releases to the 4K format. But this does say that the 4K was done with a new 2023 4K scan from the original camera negative. So they're claiming it's a brand new transfer, brand new scan from the original negative. So I had to check it out. So I broke down, went and picked it up. And like I said, I was a little hesitant because I'm totally satisfied with that Blu-ray. I'm not going to be getting rid of that Blu-ray. That's for sure. I'll be definitely keeping the Blu-ray as well. I don't think I really get rid of anything Romero that I have. Even if I upgrade to 4K, I still have the fucking VHS up there. So, so I'm not getting rid of it anyway. But I mean, Blu-ray's fantastic. But I picked up the 4K, checked it out. It was probably last Saturday, I'm guessing. Actually, no, I think it was on Tuesday. I think it was actually on the 4th of July that I went out and picked it up and watched it on the 4th. And I have to say, because like I said, I heard a lot of really good stuff about it from a lot of people and a lot of opinions that I trust. Um, and they were raving about it. And I picked it up. And from the very first shot of the film, that shot from outside the creep show house, and you see the trash can and the pumpkin in the window and all that, you can tell this thing, they did some work on this sucker, and it looks fucking amazing. You see things in this film, and like I said, I've watched Creepshow a ton of times, and it's always looked good. It was because it was really well shot, really well, the lighting and everything. Even on DVD, it still was a very appealing, aesthetically appealing film to watch. But even on the Blu-ray, I was like, man, this looks amazing. Like they really went all out for this one. But I have to say the 4K transfer that just came out, it looks amazing. I mean, it looks like this film was made, uh, you know, 5-10 years ago, as opposed to almost 30 years ago now. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It's packed with special features, audio commentaries. There's one with George Romero and Tom Savini, moderated by Michael Felcher. That one's really good. I have listened. I think that's the same one that's on the Blu-ray. Actually, a lot of these features are definitely included on the original Blu-ray as well. But well, I don't. Hmm. I don't know. I haven't checked out any of these commentaries or really much of the special features yet. But there's an audio commentary with Mike Gornick as well. I mean, we are just talking about how beautifully shot this film is. And there's also an audio commentary with composer and first assistant director John Harrison and construction coordinator Ed Fountain. Always like listening to John Harrison tell stories back when he was working with George at the time. And then there's a bunch of special features on the Blu-ray. I'm not going to go through every single one of them. There's the Horrors, Hallowed Grounds. They go to the original locations with Sean Clark. He does a bunch of stuff on YouTube as well if you want to check him out. I think it's just YouTube Sean Clark. I'm sure it'll pop up. He's a fairly known guy. Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of interviews. There's no like single documentary on this. They're kind of doing that thing that a lot of boutique labels are doing, where instead of just making like back in the day, they would have like the full length. I'm gonna quit flashing that up and down on the camera, but they'd make that full length documentary that they would include. I mean, the great ones like on the Dawn of the Dead Anchor Bay disc, they did the Dead Walk. I mean, my God, they did the Anchor Bay. Anchor Bay really did a lot of them back in the day. Blue Underground, I think the one that they did for Maniac, the story of Joe Spinell, that one's amazing. I love that one. They used to do, they were used to really invest in their documentary. I guess it's probably a cost thing at this point. It probably costs more to actually pay someone to make it, which is bad news for Felcher, right? If he happens to stumble across this, I hope you're doing well, sir. Felcher's the best at it, though. I mean, I would pay an extra. I would pay extra if they had just updated documentaries on these discs at all times. Every time they put them out, just hire Felcher to do something. I don't know, just something. It doesn't have to be a full retrospective documentary. Just something small. It's kind of like what he did for the amusement park Blu-ray that they just released. He did. It wasn't. There weren't full length documentaries, but they were kind of short, chopped up documentaries on specific aspects of the film. I love that. I wish they'd do more of that. But a lot of these they just have. Just like on this one, there's just a lot of interviews with certain people. There's an interview with Barbara Anderson. There's a roundtable discussion with John Amplis, Tom Atkins, and Marty Schiff, and Tom Savini. I actually wrote that on here. I didn't. Yeah, John Amplis, Tom Atkins, and Marty Schiff, and Tom Savini. So, so yeah, typo, Scream Factory. I'm looking to see if they have, because I'm talking about these great documentaries and behind the scenes stuff that Felcher is producing, which I do know, as a matter of fact, there is a Night of the Living Dead 90 4K coming out soon. I'm not sure a lot of the details of it. I'm not sure who's putting it out even, but I do know for a fact that Felcher is currently working on a lot of special features and stuff for that. So that's going to be, there's got to be a brand new full length retrospective documentary on Night 90, because there is one on like the DVD that they put out. I think it was called The Dead. Fuck, I don't know. All those titles are kind of the same. Um, the Dead Walk, I guess. I don't know. That's the same one as Dawn of the Dead. I didn't even think about it. But there's one on there. It's like, it's not bad. It's a little aged. And it's fairly short. I think it's 30 minutes maybe at the most, if I remember. It's been a while since I've watched it. So I'm definitely expecting a completely new making of documentary of Night 90. Because I know for a fact that Felcher's been up in Pittsburgh a lot lately, working with Tom Savini on that. Tom kind of let that out of the bag first, and then Felcher kind of fessed up to it. So there is something coming, and I think it's gonna be fucking amazing. Because really, Night 90 really hasn't had much of a release here in the United States, so it's definitely overdue. But I digress. Um, but as I was saying, I'm looking for Just Desserts is a documentary that Felcher did on Creepshow. It's really really good. I don't see it on here. I don't think they included it on this disc. Collecting Creepshow, Dave Burian's. They got all kinds of shit on here, even if it's not. Even if that's not on here, but yeah, I'm not seeing it on the back of this. Well, I thought it was included on the Blu-ray as well. Maybe not. I know it was originally included on the on that UK DVD. Matter of fact, they're all right here. I can grab it. This DVD that came out in the UK quite a few years back. This is where that documentary Just Desserts originated from, which I have. I'm just gonna start pulling out everything in my collection just to prove a point. Oh, so yeah, Just Desserts is out on its own by Synapse on Blu-ray. So if you haven't seen it, I definitely suggest picking it up. But I think this is where it originated from, because it is included on this as well. I think this is a shorter version. Anyway, I'm just going through Just Desserts now, the history of Just Desserts. We're gonna change the fucking title of the stream, but I think this is like the more complete version. If you want to watch the whole thing, it's kind of the same thing he did with After Effects, the making of effects. But yeah, I don't see it on this 4K, so that may be the only way to see it on the that UK DVD or buying it on its own. But just getting back to the transfer, I mean, the colors, it looks so you're seeing things, and I think that's one of the things I love the most about watching things in 4K is that these movies that you've seen 100 times, you're seeing things that you've never seen before, like in the background of shots, and even like just little movements. Like there's a scene in Father's Day where Warner Shook's character's just kind of sitting there, and he's got his wine, and he's got like this little scarf or something, and he just kind of drops it over the nose of this little porcelain dog or something that's sitting there. And I had never, but it cracked me up the other night when I watched it, and I had never noticed it before. It's just kind of this little thing in the background, and it's funny as shit. I don't know why it cracked me up, but I had never seen that before. But you can definitely see that in this new 4K transfer. But yeah, and then of course the sound is amazing. It sounds much better. I mean, it's definitely I would suggest picking this up just to check it out, because they did do a really good job on this. I have to give them credit where credit is due. But yeah, a lot of features, beautiful scan, a lot of commentaries. I would definitely recommend picking this up if you're a fan of Romero, if you're a fan of Creepshow, if you're a fan of the horror genre in general. I suggest picking that sucker up, because, like I said, they did a really really great job on it. All right. Zombie Grease in the house. What's up, my man? Hope you're having a good weekend. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I don't know if you were on. I'm gonna be doing a remembering Romero retrospective stream next weekend in honor of the 6 year anniversary of his death. Um, so if you want to hop on, let me know, man. I know we've discussed it before in the past. Um, got Jimmy in here. What's up, my man? Creepshow was awesome as well as the soundtrack. Yes, Creepshow, the soundtrack. I mentioned it actually on my. I did a video on the film effects and talking about John Harrison and his scores and the Creepshow score is one of the all time great horror scores ever. It's iconic, and just perfect for that film. It's amazing how that worked out. Um, but yes, totally agree. All right. Well, I think it's time to quit bullshitting around here. Diet Coke tonight. I'm out of Iron Cities, unfortunately. So, let's see. So it's time to get into the main event here. The top 10 Romero Heroes. Let's see. Before we get into that, zombie grease, getting ready to go to the coast to do my Jaws thing. Awesome. Hopefully catch something. Well, good luck, my man. Hope you if you catch the shark, bragging rights. Bragging rights. All right. So here we go. The top 10 Romero Heroes in all of Romero's filmography as a director. We'll go ahead and do it. Top 10 Romero Heroes. So what is a hero? Like, well, how are we constituting a hero? And then this is a pretty hard list to come up with, to be honest with you, because it's like we talked about on the top 10 villains stream. It's really hard to like Romero's characters. He rarely ever wrote just your straight ahead black and white, archetypal hero, archetypal villain. A lot of the characters in Romero's films are more anti-hero than anything. So really trying to balance, figure out, what would I constitute as a hero? Because coming up with top 10 true film heroes in Romero's, 10 good ones, no offense to Alan Van Sprague, but he did make the list. He did not make the list. I apologize. But when you think of a Romero hero, of course you got Ken Foray, it's Peter, Dawn of the Dead. I mean that's the guy that when you're playing Dawn of the Dead with your your friends and your cousins growing up, everybody wanted to be Peter because he was the strong, silent, always had the plan, was kind of the leader of the group. And then sometimes you wanted to be Roger, Scott Reiniger, the fun, charismatic, um, crazy-ish hero. Steven was always the one we made our clumsy cousin. We'd always play. I would always be Peter, just because of the 4 characters growing up. Peter kind of fit my because I was always the one who was like, "Hey, here's what we're doing today. We're playing Resident Evil, or we're doing, we're having wrestling. We're doing backyard wrestling today." I always had a plan. Always had, blah blah blah. And then I had my cousin TJ was more of the, athletic, like always wanting to climb and jump off shit cousin, and just ready to dig in head first to anything that we asked him to do. So he would always be Roger. And then our cousin was just he's kind of clumsy, trip over his own feet, type of kid. Well, a younger cousin. We always made him Steven. And then my sister was always Fran because she was, the girl that was trying to keep up with the boys growing up. So that's one of the reasons why I love Dawn of the Dead so much. I think it's why it clicked with me when I was so young, is because it just reminded me of, what I was growing up with and how we played as a kid. I mean, it just felt like a movie where people were playing. You hear Tom Savini and George and pretty much anybody that worked in that film. They would tell you that, yeah, it was Halloween every night. That's what Tom Savini says. We were just playing, having a good time. But anyway, I digress. Then of course you got Ben, who is definitely heroic, definitely a hero in the film, but did end up being wrong in the end. So there's no such thing. There's Romero never wrote your comic book heroes, your 100% good guy, 100% bad guy. Everybody had their faults. So coming up with this list is pretty tough. And I think my number 10 selection here, I think it's going to be a little controversial, but it's something that I want to discuss because that I think that this character was definitely had heroic qualities on paper, but in practice, he comes off as the villain in the film. And I think it's the way that George wrote the character. It's the way that George wrote the antagonist to this character, the way that he was. I mean, it's a brilliant study on just how to portray certain characters in different ways. And I gotta say, number 10 on my list of top 10 Romero heroes has got to be Lincoln Mizell as Cuda from Martin. Let me explain. Like, it's yes, I totally agree that Cuda may not be the nicest guy in the world. He may not be the most subtle. He straight up will tell you what he believes, what he stands for. Doesn't sugarcoat shit in the entire movie. Um, he's not your charming leading man. He's not your charming hero. But in the end, he does do the right thing, even though maybe the way his view of the world may not be the correct view. Maybe his view of the world added to the problem, which is, of course, is his cousin Martin, who is the main character in the film, the one that we sympathize with the most. But when you break it down, you write it down on paper. Martin's character, played by John Amplas, I can't tell you how great that performance is, and it added a lot to this dynamic. Because if John Amplas wasn't as good in that role as he was, it wouldn't have worked. Because on paper, Martin is a drugging, rapist, murderer, cannibal, I guess you could say, with the blood drinking. He's a peeping tom. He's everything in the book that would make the perfect villain. He's he checks all the boxes. But, we end up sympathizing with him. We end up caring about him. We end up rooting for him in the end. And Cuda, on the other hand, Lincoln Mizell's character, is very religious, very honest. Like I said, he believes what he believes, and he will tell you what he believes, whether you want to hear it or not. But lives the very straight and narrow life. He's a community man. He loves his town. He refuses to leave Braddock, even though it is a dying town. He stands with his community. I mean, he runs a little grocery store there in the community. He's friendly with all the old biddies that come in to buy his meat. I mean, in the eyes of society, he's looked at as the good guy. And Martin is kind of looked at as the outcast. But we, as the audience, as we're watching it, it's the other way around. We look at Cuda as the asshole, the evil villain of the piece, and Martin's the sympathetic, not hero, but the good guy. He's the poor kid. You feel sorry for him. But in the end, I mean, and Lincoln knows what Martin's doing. He's very aware of what Martin is, what he believes he is. And he says it in the film. The line, first I will, what is it? It's like, first I will save you, save your soul, and then I will destroy you. Basically saying the only reason you're still alive, the only reason that you're still here is because I'm trying to save you. I'm trying to save your soul. And then once I do that, then you must pay for what you've done. And it is a heroic, and yes, spoiler alert, when at the end of the film, when Cuda gets the stake and puts it through the heart of Martin, kills him, buries him, puts the cross, and all that. It is a heroic gesture. He's in his mind, maybe not in ours, and maybe not society's mind. It's probably not the right thing to do, by society standards. But in his mind, he's doing the right thing. He's ridding the world of a devil, of a demon. Um, and he's saving countless lives by doing that. Yeah, if Martin continued to exist in the world that he was in, yeah, he probably did need to be in a home or something like that. But in the existence that he had at the time, how many more women or men, how many more people would he killed if he hadn't been taken down like that? So you could look at it that way. Kuda saved a ton of lives. So I had to put him on this list. I had to put him at number 10 because it was something I went back and forth with. Because the way he's portrayed in the film, he's not your quote unquote hero, but when you put it on paper, it's like, yeah, he was kind of the hero. He was the Van Helsing to the Dracula. Um, so I had to put it on the list. If you don't agree, let me know. We'll talk it out. Convince me otherwise. But speaking of Lincoln Mizell, I mean, what a great actor! What a fantastic actor! And I mean, I only knew him from Martin until the amusement park just came out, and just watching him in that, I mean, the end of that, I mean, it was a tearjerker. I mean, his performance at the end of that film is one of my all-time favorite scenes of any Romero film. Just for just the just oh, it's heartbreaking. I can't, I don't even want to talk about it. But I mean, it's amazing. I mean, his son, Lauren Mizell, became like this huge, uh, one of the best orchestra composers or what, whatever in the world. Um, and amazingly enough, like I was actually just looking at Wikipedia, just looking at Lincoln Mizell, just because I know very, I don't really know a whole lot about him. Um, but on Wikipedia, he lived to be 106 years old. He died in 2009. He was born in 1903. So in Martin, the dude is fucking 74 years old. He lived another 30 years after that. That's amazing. What a story. What a guy. What a guy. What an actor. Lincoln Mizell, ladies and gentlemen. That's my dedication to old Lincoln there. Let's look in the comments here. Zombie Grease. Peter is definitely the man, and Don, I think his character has more depth than others. I completely agree. Completely agree with that. Zombie Grease. Ben was wrong, but I still would have done it his way. And yes, I think it's the more noble thing to do. Yeah. But like we discussed on the heroes, I mean, Harry Cooper was right in the end. I mean, at the end of the day, Ben does get on the cellar. I mean, should he have done it? Well, should that have been the first thing that he should have done, or you know, or was he right to try to stay and fight as long as you can, and then your last resort? I don't know. I guess the way that movie ended and the way that Ben kind of met his end just would kind of say no. But you never know. If you never know what would have happened. Uh, Jimmy Gwaltney. I guess that's how you pronounce it. Gwaltney. Let me know. In the original Night, definitely Ben. Then Tom and Helen as they had common sense. I've heard of that. I don't know if it was you or not. Somebody left a comment on it talking about Helen Cooper as a good, and that's definitely she did end up being heroic. Instead of running down to the cellar with Harry in the end, she stayed and fought. Why that was, I don't know. But she refused to go down the cellar. She stood up and tried to fight to the bitter end alongside Ben, which kind of fucked up. I kind of feel bad for Harry Cooper when your wife is like, "No, fuck you, man. I'm sticking with Ben over here." Let's see what else. Barbara maybe, but her character didn't come alive until the very end. But she had potential as well. I definitely, you could say, if I were including, I'll go ahead and I don't. If I were including Night 90, I would definitely have Barbara in the top 10. But I can't include Night 90. It's a Tom Savini film. It's not a Romero film, although Romero did write it. But that's what I call a Romero adjacent film. Grease. I love the song Martin the Vampire by Obituary. Good choice. I never would have considered his character. Love Romero as the priest. Yeah, and it was kind of one of those things where I was just kind of going down the list of Romero's films and just kind of seeing, okay, who are the heroes and the villains of this film? You know, Night of the Living Dead, it's fairly easy. Um, there's always Vanilla. I don't know, not doesn't really fit for this conversation. Season of the Witch, there's not really a hero villain dichotomy. Then I got to Martin. I was like, Martin was not a hero at all. That's not somebody you really want to model your life after. Um, but Kuda, you kind of do. You kind of do want to model your life after Kuda in a way. You don't want to be just like Kuda, but you do want to be true to your community. You want to, have strong beliefs and you want to stand for what you believe in and you want to run a little supermarket so you can flirt with all the blue-haired old ladies that come in, just desperate for your meat. Um, but so yeah, I had to be honest with myself and put Kuda on this list. Um, but yeah, at number 9 here, I'm going with Gary Lottie as Sir Alan in Knight Riders, and this is more of to use a wrestling term, this is more of a kayfabe choice. Because in the film he's definitely, I had to put him on this list. I have him at number 9, and I think that's about where he should be. Just for in the film, he's the one that kind of saves the day. He kind of brings everything back together. After everything falls apart, Savini and the Black Knights, they go off to, become TV stars or whatever, and then he kind of goes off with what's her name of the movie? I can't think of her name right off the top of my head, but it's Patricia Tallman's character, and runs off with her and Harold Wayne Jones, his character. They go off, and everything kind of falls apart. But he's the one that it kind of clicks back with them, like, no, we got to go back. Was that the right thing to do? Who knows? Who knows what happened to that troop after the film? With a new king and yada yada yada. But the movie kind of comes back to where you want it to come, and it's all due to him. He kind of drops off Patty Tallman's character and just kind of says, "Look, it's been fun, but this is not what this is." And you could say that it's kind of a dick move, but I mean, that was just his moment of being honest. It's like, this isn't going to work out. Like, it's it was fun while it lasted, honey. So he had a moment of honesty there with himself, where he was just kind of looking, like, what am I doing with this kid? Like, we we have nothing in common. So he has a moment of honesty with himself. There is like this love, which is something in Knight Riders I wish they would have maybe, elaborated on a little bit more. It was the unspoken love interest between him and Amy, what's her face? Amy Ingersoll's character. That's kind of hinted at throughout the film, but it's never really elaborated on or anything. So maybe that's why he decides to go back. They never really 100% put a stamp on that. It's like his one reason to go back is for her. So but at the end of the day, he goes and rounds up Savini and the Black Knights, and they all get back together, and happy ending. We all say today, and it's not really a happy ending, but and Gary Lottie, I mean, what was kind of Romero's first heartthrob hero in any of his films. Like, he's just this young, good-looking kid, and he didn't really do anything after Knight Riders. He didn't really do much. I mean, he did a few things. I know he did had a role on an episode of Tales from the Dark Side. And he did a few TV things here and there, but other than that, I mean, Knight Riders is pretty much his one and only big time role. So yeah, this selection, like I said, was definitely more of a kayfabe selection, just for what he meant to the film. He does kind of end up saving the day at the end. And like I said, he's kind of one of the, if not the only, like, heartthrob babyface characters that Romero ever wrote. So I had to put him on this list at number 9. And of course, he was, Billy's first in command on the troop. If Billy goes down, he has to go out there to protect and make the save. And of course, he's the one that's trying to save Billy from himself the whole film. So there's a lot of good qualities there about old Sir Alan, Gary Lottie, and he did a Living Dead Weekend. Can't think if it was last year before last. It may have been last year. Can't remember. It was recently. That was like the first convention I've ever seen him do. He still looks great. I mean, he looks young. I mean, it was him and I can never remember his name. The Blackbird. Anyway, they did the convention that year, and I think that was like the first convention either one of them had really done or had any kind of involvement with Night Riders since it came out. So hopefully he does some more. I'd love to. Hang on and pause real quick. Okay, sorry about that. Beyonce, I think she's okay. I think she'll be okay. So yeah, number 10, Lincoln Mizell as Cuda Martin. Number 9, Gary Lottie as Sir Alan and Night Riders. So I agree. Stephen King's cameo in Night Riders was funny. Stephen King, watching Creepshow again, him and that. I mean, the dude had some kind of chops. There he was a funny guy. But yeah, I don't think he would make this list. But definitely love him in Night Riders. Number 8 on my list, and this is one that me and Grande's Graveyard, we discussed about a week or so ago. But at number 8 on my list, I got to put Simon Baker as Riley in Land of the Dead. Of course, Simon Baker. He had done quite a bit of stuff before Land of the Dead. This was his first real leading main actor role in the film. Was it the best casting? Would he have been my choice for the role? Probably not. But he does what he does. He did go on to that's my biggest compliment about Simon Baker. He does what he does in the film. But he does a fine job. No, I can't hate on him. But he did go on to have a starring role on the CBS show that ran for 7 or 8 years, The Mentalist. So that was kind of his big break. I don't think he's done much since. But Land of the Dead was the first time I'd ever heard of him. And like I said, maybe not my best, or not my choice in that role. But it is Romero's one, especially in the Dead films, his one pretty straight-laced hero character. There's not a lot of villainous aspects to him. I mean, he has a little sidekick played by Robert Joy, Charlie, who kind of watches his back because Riley rescued him from a fire. He's sympathetic with the revolution that's happening on the streets, with the commoners that are getting a little fed up with getting the scraps, while Kaufman and everybody in Fiddler's Green's getting all the best. Some of that Romero social commentary there. But he's sympathetic with the cause. He's helping. He's bringing antibiotics to the revolution leader's young son. So he's a pretty straightforward Hollywood archetypal hero in this film. And of course the whole plot of the film where he has to go and rescue Kaufman and all of Fiddler's Green from Cholo and the Dead Reckoning. Even that, he's not doing it for Kaufman. Kaufman thinks he's just a hired hand doing it for Kaufman, but in his mind, he's rescuing the whole city. The city will rise up against Kaufman, take over, and then he's out in the Dead Reckoning, and he's leaving town. So noble. He's very noble. But like I said, I got him at number 8. Yes, he is the most archetypal hero in really any Romero film. But I'm not the biggest fan of the performance. There's nothing against Simon Baker. I mean, I was really pumped to see that he had a show on CBS, The Mentalist, um, and that was popular and ran for a number of years. I was like, oh yeah, Romero Boy did good. But I mean, he did stuff before Romero, but that's how I knew him. That's how I knew Simon Baker. I don't really know him from anything else. Um, but they did that behind the scenes making of little documentary on IFC before Land of the Dead came out, and I remember he really sold himself to me on that because in that little documentary there, he's through the whole thing, he's kind of giving his thoughts on working with George and what it's like, and really kind of being on an action horror film for the first time, and yada yada yada. And then, you can tell this he's always played like kind of the good looking, like romantic interest in films, or I could pull up his Wikipedia right now and then go through his list of films, but none of them were horror or action or anything like that. So this dude's it's a whole new experience for him. And at the end of the documentary, he just kind of he can't hold it back anymore. He just starts laughing. He's like, I have to say that this, I'm gonna do my fake British accent. So I have to say that this has been the most fun I've ever had on a film. And it was just so genuine. I don't know. Like that horrible British accent. I don't know what the fuck that was, but at the end, it's just really cool. It was, you could tell it wasn't just actor speak. When they're doing their interviews to hype up a film, he really was just like, this is so cool. Like I feel like a kid again. And that's the environment that George always brought to any set. So, but yeah, got to put Riley Land of the Dead at number 8 on my list. Number 7. We'll move on to number 7, and this one's an interesting one. Going back to kind of wrestling terms here, I kind of look at these guys as a tag team. It was hard for me to separate them one way or the other, and that is Terry Alexander and Jarlath Conroy as John and McDermott in Day of the Dead. I couldn't separate them. One from the other. They were just always, they were kind of a tag team. There's always been like the a bit of a, I don't know, rumor or theory from some fans that maybe they were gay together. I don't know. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but there's always been that theory that they were kind of together in the film, but not in real life. No, not in real life. But kayfabe, brother, in the film. But like I said, they're reluctant heroes. There's different types of heroes out there. They're definitely the reluctant heroes in the situation. But at the beginning of the film, they kind of play two characters that have just kind of given in to the fact that humanity is over. Everyone's dead. Everyone's gonna die, and they're all gonna come back, and it's over. There's no saving it. But they just so happen to have the ability to fly a helicopter or run radio gear, which I don't know how hard running a radio is, but maybe it's really hard. Like, I don't know, but I've never done it. So they've kind of carved out their little niche in this cave with scientists on one end and the U.S. military on the other side, and they're just in the middle. And they've decided, instead of trying to pick a side, we're just fucking checking out. We're drinking from the flask. We're building our little island paradise out behind our trailer down here in the cave. We're dressing up this trip. Fuck it. We're done. We're not on any side. Whenever you need me to fly you somewhere, I'll go. If you need me to call out, see if there's anybody out there, I can do that. Otherwise than that, don't fuck with me. Give me some food. I'm not taking side one way or the other. Is that heroic? Is that a heroic stance in a situation like that? Possibly, yeah. I mean, it does take guts just to say "fuck it," it's over. Which but you kind of come to the conclusion that that is the way to go by the end. So yeah, were they heroic at all originally? Not really. I mean, like I said, they were pretty checked out. They'd fly. They would not leave the chopper. I mean, not Billy, but John says it right up front. He's like, "All right, I'll set us down, but I'll stay a certain amount. But if you're not on board when that happens, I'm fucking gone. You're likely to have a lousy afternoon because I'm not sticking around. I don't care." So they're just kind of they've accepted the fact that the world has ended, and they're just going to live it out, drinking and just doing what they do. Um, but by the end of the film, when everything kind of starts going to shit, they kind of become a little more close to Laurie Cardill's character, Sarah. Um, they kind of have a bit of a bond after a while once Sarah kind of just sits down and then opens up and actually listens to what they're saying, because that's probably the thing that kind of kept those two or those three apart all this time, because Sarah was always just so determined to find an answer, to find a cure, to you know keep fighting the good fight, and they were just so uh, just done, reserved to the fact that it was over. So I think when Sarah finally was just like, could start to see that it was all falling apart, and actually opened up and listened to what these guys had to say and where they were coming from, I think that brought them together, and I think that kind of brought um, John and McDermott uh, into a place where they were okay. Now we will be heroic in this situation, because you know uh, they were kind of forced into it, just because of these two warring factions in that cave. Um, so yeah, I couldn't separate one from the other, because they are kind of one character to me. They're John and Billy. Um, it's hard to really separate them in my mind, so I had to put them down here. I'm with a little bit of a caveat, with a little asterisk on there. I'm counting them as a tag team. So if we were doing like top 10 like wrestling heroes of all time, I think it would be okay if you put a tag team in there. So I'm gonna put a tag team in mine. Um, Comments. Zombie Grease, awesome. They are an inseparable team. Easy for me to say. But really, those two and Sarah are the team against Rhodes. Always considered Rhodes my favorite Romero character. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've seen Effects or not yet, but I mean, Joe Pilato does a great job, and kind of the flip side of that. But yeah, Rhodes is definitely one of the all-time just best characters in horror. Period. Just so memorable. So yes, it's over the top, and I've heard that complaint or criticism of that performance in Day of the Dead, but uh, I don't know. I think it's perfectly over the top, because these guys are at their wits end. So I would probably be fucking screaming and losing my shit at all times too. So Terry and John from Day really didn't seem like heroes. They seemed like they lived in their own world. Yeah, and like I said, that they really that's what they were. Like they pretty much checked out from everything else that was going on, the warring sides, the science versus the military, and blah blah blah. And these guys were just, they said fuck it. It's over. We'll help when we can. If you need me to fly somewhere, that's what I'm here to do. If you need me to try to reach someone on the radio, that's what I'm here to do. But other than that, I'm here to eat. And then we're going back to our trailer and maybe having gay sex. I don't know. I just love that theory. I don't know where I heard that from originally, but there was that theory that they were together in that way. I don't know, but get some babies, start fresh. Anyway, speaking of, Terry's speech near the end was my favorite part of the movie. That is an amazing speech, and it's one of those that I had to watch a few times to get, because of the thick island accent, or whatever you want to call it, the Caribbean accent or whatever that he was doing in that film. Which Terry Alexander is not Jamaican or whatever. It's if you couldn't tell, I mean, but I have heard of him at like conventions. I think it was on Dead Pit. They were talking about it the other night. I have heard that he will put on the accent and just fucking go with it at conventions sometimes, and some people won't know the difference. Um, but yeah, love that scene. But I had to watch it a few times just because of that. Just to try to understand what all he was saying. Rhodes was over the top in the theater back in '85. Now in today's society, I see him much more tamed. That is a fantastic point. That is a great point, Zombie Grease. I mean, shit, you see worse now on the floor of Congress than what he was doing back then. That's hilarious. Good one. All right. So we're up to number 6 on my list. And number 6, I got Will W.G. McMillan from the Crazies on this list at number 6. To me, um, I think First Blood, the first Rambo movie, was a bit of a ripoff from the Crazies. Because if you think in the Crazies, David, the character that Will McMillan's playing, he does play a former Green Beret, completely disillusioned with the military after being overseas in Vietnam, completely disillusioned with the U.S. government. And that's what kind of sets him on his own goal in the Crazies to kind of take him, his pregnant girlfriend, his buddy, a few hangers on, and try to escape this because he knows better. He knows that, okay, yeah, the government's coming to quarantine this town and lock it down. There's bad things going on. It's the yada yada. And man, I'm telling you, after going through COVID and watching the Crazies again, it's amazing how ahead of the game that Romero was in terms of just society's response and their reaction to a situation like that. But anyway, so David's character in the film is kind of on this crusade of his own to escape the military. He knows that this is not good, which I think, Harold Wayne Jones's character in the film kind of laughs at one point. He's like, huh, they think they think the army's our friends or something like that. So so it's basically, he's using his military training to escape the situation that they're in, which is being overrun and quarantined by the U.S. government. And I just thought it was fantastic. I think he does a great job in it. And he's definitely heroic in the film. He's definitely the leader of the crew. He's got the plan. Former Green Beret. He's got the training to really, make it out alive. And it's an interesting thing to think about too. At the end of the Crazies, the one non-heroic thing that he does, and I mean, he just went through the ringer, tried to escape. I mean, he just lost his pregnant girlfriend and his unborn child. His best friend is dead. He's given up, and he knows his disdain for the government and the military is so thick and so so hardened at this point that that they just assume that he's crazy now because he won't say anything otherwise. He's just playing along. At the end of the film, he's the last one standing. They just think that he's one of the crazies. He's infected with the Trixie or whatever. And he won't tell him any otherwise. He's actually, there's no way that he shouldn't be contaminated, but he's not. He's totally fine. And they kind of insinuate that he's kind of got the blood type or whatever that would be a cure for this. He has the antibodies or whatever you want to call it, and they could use his blood to study and try to do something. But he's just like, nope, fuck it, let it all burn. Because they do kind of point out like, yeah, this is there's no end to this. It's starting to break out all over now, and he's just like, no. So maybe that's not the most heroic decision at the end of the film, but yeah, and Will McMillan did a ton of stuff after this. I mean, I was looking at his IMDb not too long ago. Did a ton of TV. I mean, even like Knots Landing and stuff. He's passed. He died, I think, 2015. I want to say possibly somewhere around there. But yeah, a ton of credits to his name, a long lifetime's worth of work in film and in TV. I know he did some other horror stuff. I think he was in Christmas Evil at one point, small roles. But yeah, I thought he did fantastic in this, and I think the character is definitely the precursor to Peter in Dawn of the Dead, kind of the guy with the plan. Well, I mean, maybe he's he's like a mix between Peter and Steven with the pregnant girlfriend and yada yada. But yeah, definitely the leader of the crew, of course, his best friend ends up kind of going going out of his mind. Kind of reminds you of, Roger. So I don't know. I just think he's kind of the precursor to Ken Foree's character in Dawn of the Dead. It's Peter. Jimmy says they probably weren't gay, but in a zombie apocalypse, you take what you can get. That's true. I mean, they were kind of. Poor Sarah. But lucky Miguel, right? Right. Yeah. That's hilarious. So, all right. Looking at the list here, number 10, Lincoln Mizell as Cuda in Martin. Number 9, Gary Lottie as Sir Alan in Night Riders. Number 8, Simon Baker as Riley in Land of the Dead. Number 7, Terry Alexander and Jarlath Conroy as John and McDermott. Maybe they were gay, And like you said, fuck it. At this point, when you're down to that core group of people, it's like, why not? Fuck it. I mean, that was their mentality at the time. So, yeah, what the hell? Fuck it. And number 6, W.G. McMillan as David and the Crazies. Okay, so now we're getting into the top 5 here. Now I can't get that image out of my head. I can't get the image of John and Billy. Fucking Billy's got the flask, and I mean, I guess in my mind, Billy's the bottom and John's the top. I don't know what our brains are at this point now. Like, this is where our brains are. Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks. Just picture with the flask and Billy's just like, yeah, man. Anyway, I love the Crazies. Prefer the remake. Probably one of the last good horror movies I've seen. I wasn't a big fan of the remake. I have a lot of issues with the remake. It's not a bad little action film, but I think it just completely misses the point of the Crazies and what I think they just took the name The Crazies because it had Romero attached to it and just kind of made another zombie movie out of it. And like I said, just kind of, to me, missed the point. But man, yeah, I think in terms of modern remakes, it's definitely better than a lot of the shit that's out there. All right, so let's move to number 5 here. Let's get into the top 5. These are the creme de la creme. What's in it? Of the heroes in Romero's films. And Duck Dog, I think this is the first time we've seen you in here. So what's up, my man? Good to have you in here. Duck Dog. All right, number 5. It's got to be Mr. Scott Reiniger as Roger in Dawn of the Dead. Definitely a hero in this film. I mean, he does, he saves Flyboy and Fran at the airport a couple times. Saves Ken from Flyboy, from getting shot by Flyboy at the airport. But yeah, I mean, Roger was just the cool hero. I mean, the fun, energetic. Like I said, like when I think of the main 4 characters in Dawn, I think of my childhood growing up with, my cousins and stuff, and the one that you always wanted to send out, front of the battle that can handle anything, that was Roger. That was Scott Reiniger's character in Dawn of the Dead. Let me the hell? Hang on. Technical difficulties. Hey, Duck Dog. Good to be here. Well, good to have you, my man. Okay, let me see if I can fix this screen. My screen's kind of... where do I need to be? Okay. So, yeah, Scotty's character. Okay. Scotty's character, Roger in Dawn of the Dead. That's always, I mean, when you're playing Dawn of the Dead as a kid, you either want to be Peter or you want to be Roger. Roger's character definitely kind of fell apart at the end. That was his big demise. But I think the biggest thing that kind of made him a hero at the time is that he knew he was a goner once he got bit, and once he knew that his time was limited. He knew he was a goner, but he continued to fight and help because he wanted to, secure the mall and secure a safe place for his friends. His new buddy Peter, his old friend Flyboy, Fran. The child. He continued to fight. He wanted to be, he wanted to enjoy it as well, but he knew that it wasn't going to last. He knew his time was limited. But so the fact that he still put him, see, he could have just said, "Fuck it, leave me here in the bed. Like it's done. I'm a goner. I'm gonna be what I hate. I don't want to be one of these fucking things." And I mean, even down to the point where once he dies, he does fight to not come back. He tells Peter, "I'm not coming back. I'm gonna try not to come back because I don't want to be one of those things." So even in death, the dude is fighting against against what he doesn't want to be. Um, so I mean, God, Scott Reineker's performance in that, I mean, just so cool. And we were talking about, like heartthrob, uh, babyface heroes in Romero's films. Growing up, I think my sister had a crush on Scotty back then. I know quite a few females that have had crushes on him over the years. Um, but definitely, you got to put him on this list. I got him at number 5. I had him a little higher, but I had to kind of talk myself down off that because I think this top 4. I mean, it's hard to argue against these top 4. Now, the order you may argue. I'm definitely here for the conversation. Really, the top 5 you can kind of put them in any order. It just depends on where you put Scotty on this list. But I got Scott at number 5. You game? I need lighter fluid. Love that one. Sorry. My StreamYard's being wonky. Apologize. I'm trying to go back and forth between like comments and banners and all this other shit. I'm trying to put a little production value into my streams just for the fun of it. Just to experiment, see what we can do and what we can't do. So yeah, Scott Reiniger as Roger in Dawn of the Dead at number 5. One of the cooler heroes for sure. So that puts me at number 4, and at number 4, I have to go with Dwayne Jones as Ben in Night of the Living Dead. Should he be higher? I think that there are definitely arguments to be made that Ben should be higher. We've already kind of touched on it a little bit tonight. Ben, of course, first and foremost, I mean, Dwayne Jones even speaks. There's not really a backstory to Ben's character. Where does Ben come from? Why is he there? Who was he previous to this thing happening? My theory was always that he was more of an intellectual character. He was probably headed to a college to, and maybe that's just because that's my interpretation of who Dwayne Jones was as a person. But so maybe I think he became a bit of a reluctant hero. I think he wasn't saving Barbara. He wasn't. I don't think his main goals were to protect the people that he was with at the time. I think they all just kind of converged on this thing together. I don't think it was really in his intentions to save or protect any of these people. Maybe Barbara. Maybe he was a little protective of Barbara. Because you can in the film when Harry Cooper's like, "I'm taking the girl," and he's like, "You're going to leave the girl alone. She stays with me." So maybe there's a little bit of a connection there between him and Barbara. But the rest of the crew, I feel like they were just kind of there, and he had to deal with it. He was like, that's why he was just frustrated that he couldn't just get up and go to the car, get to the car, and get out of there, get to the gas, whatever. He had to think about Karen Cooper down in the cellar. He has to worry about Harry Cooper, cutting his nuts off behind his back. He has to worry about Barbara losing her shit in the middle of nowhere. He's got to worry about these 2 kids, Tom and Judy, who are just there, and not that Tom and Judy were just there. They were, they didn't offer much to Ben's character at the time, other than I guess they could drive a truck. But so I don't think Ben had like a noble cause. I don't think his thing was. I think his whole like, let's stay up here and fight. Let's board up the windows. I think that was more out of his self preservation than anybody else's. And I mean, I think that's you know the clash between him and Harry Cooper in the film, because Harry's got a family to think of. Tom's got Judy to think of. Judy's got Tom to think of. And Ben's just kind of a lone wolf. Maybe he wants to protect Barbara. Maybe there's some kind of, like I said, some kind of connection there. But I think other than that, he's there to protect himself. He's there to save himself. Um, so, but he does do heroic things. He does, in the process of trying to save himself, he does save Barbara numerous times. Should he have let Tom go with him? I mean, I guess so. I mean, Tom's a grown ass man. It's not his job to protect Tom, I guess. But I don't know. Should he have been a little more considerate in taking other people's opinions? Maybe not. But it is what it is. You can't argue the fact that he was the main hero, the main guy you rooted for in that film, the guy you stood with. And again, I think it goes back to that Cuda Martin dichotomy. I think the way that Romero portrays, Ben's character and Cooper's character in the film, the way that they're portrayed, I mean, it's easy to kind of mix that up. Harry Cooper's trying to protect his family first and foremost. We went over this during the top 10 villains because I had him at number 10. I had to put him on there. But I think when you, on paper, there's not really a good or a bad there. There's not really a right or a wrong. But as viewers, as we're watching this, we're more compelled to Ben's point of view, Ben's way of looking at things, because we want to be like that. We want to say, fuck it, we're going to stay up here and fight. I'm not going to lock myself down in the cellar. I need, backup plans. We got to be able to go out to the back door if we need to, So I think we all identify. We want to be more like Ben and less like Harry in that situation, where Harry just kind of wanted to lock himself away and hide and hope for help comes. So it's really just, it's a difference of opinions, but the way that they're portrayed and in terms of the characters' personalities and the way they go about things, we end up cheering for Ben more than we do Harry. Even though Ben was wrong in the end, Harry was right. I stand by that. So I had to put him at number 4. I think some people are gonna want him a little higher, but Jimmy, I was just in Monroeville a few weeks ago and wanted to slide down the escalator like Roger, but they have these bars in the center that will get you right in the jewels. Yeah, I think the story is on those. I think they started putting those in after the film came out because of the Dawn of the Dead and people seeing Roger do it in the film, and they want to do it. And I know quite a few people. Of course, that JCPenney's is no longer there. There are still escalators in Monroeville at the Monroeville Mall, but yeah, the escalators that used to be JCPenney put all those there. But I think they were tearing down JCPenney's, because I do know of a number of people that that have slid down that escalator the way that Roger does, and I think that adds to Roger's credibility as a hero. You want to be like him, I think that's the main thing that a hero should be. Your hero, you should want to be like your heroes. Zombie Grease. Ben was originally a redneck trucker, but Ben and Night is a gentleman, even when he bitch slaps Barbara. That is true. I mean, that is he does end up bitch slapping Barbara, but he had to do something. She was about to just run outside and go crazy. So he was saving her from herself, protecting her. So sometimes you got to show a woman your pip hand strong, But yeah, in the original script, Ben was portrayed, because he was written without color. That's the thing about too, and that's the big thing everybody wants to talk about with Night of the Living Dead is Ben was a black man, black lead. And there's people put all these racial overtones in them, and maybe they were, subconsciously there. Maybe perhaps I'm not sure. Maybe the way that Dwayne Jones plays the character instead of playing it like a redneck trucker, but in the original, the original screenplay, Ben was a kind of a redneck trucker, kind of, I got this, I'm here to save the day type of guy, whereas Dwayne Jones just kind of came along and played it completely differently. So yeah, definitely good call there. But yeah, sometimes you're gonna have to bitch slap somebody and kind of snap them back into reality. Although it kind of just snapped her into a comatose state, so I don't know. All right, going into the top 3 here. There's 3 names left, and we're gonna call it a night. This one may be a little controversial, but for me, from my personal point of view, for my personal kind of view of the world and my beliefs and whatnot, I have to put Ed Harris as King Billy in Knight Riders at number 3 on this list. To me, the man fights 100% for what he believes in. He has a view of the world that he will fight for. He has a group of people that he will fight for. I mean, in the film alone, at the beginning of the film, when the sheriff's deputy comes and is trying to extort money out of the troop, and he ends up taking the one guy away, and Ed Harris's character Billy's like, "You're not taking him alone. Like, I take me with you." Like, he's offering to go to jail with his guy to protect him. And yeah, he's a strong, stern character. He may not be the nicest guy in the world, but he's fighting for what he believes in. He's fighting to, and some people may look at him as is he a hero or is he a cult leader? I mean, he's really kind of a little bit of both. But I think his heart's in the right place. The way he views the world, he wants to kind of live in this hippie paradise, I guess you want to say, this alternate reality. And of course, this is George's. I mean, George always talks about this. This is his most personal film because this is the way that George kind of saw the world at the time. And I think that's what endears me to Ed Harris in this film as King Billy. King Billy is George Romero. George has this core group of people. They're making films in a certain way. They're living life on their own terms, and they're a family. And then all these outside influences will come in and try to tear that family apart. It almost happens in Knight Riders, while King Billy is trying everything he can. It's like he says, I'm not trying to be a hero. I'm fighting the dragon. Fighting the dragon just means fighting societal standards of what's expected of you as a person. It's fighting, people's expectations of what you should be as an adult and what you should be doing with your life. And he has to kind of fight to keep that belief and that thought going, not just with himself at times, but with everyone around him. And that's kind of the main fight that his character is putting forward in this film, is the fight to live free, to be who you want to be in life. And I just think there's something so powerful and brilliant about that. And that was George at the time, because if you think about it, Knight Riders was kind of the last time that George really worked independently. I mean, just really, really independently with just this core group of people. I mean, everybody, and it's weird because Knight Riders is kind of like this big reunion of like everybody that ever worked with George on any of George's films. They were all in Knight Riders. And then after that, of course, George goes and makes Creep Show, Day of the Dead. Then he goes on to Monkey Shines and kind of starts making more studio, bigger budget films. And this was kind of the last one. It was just kind of like, hey, this is our troupe, making these movies, living life on our own terms. And of course, Ed Harris, the character of King Billy is not 100% heroic. I mean, he says to himself, I'm not trying to be a hero. But he's looked up to by kids in the film. He ends up, kind of making good. The last bit of the film is him kind of righting all of his wrongs. I guess he finds the cop that takes him to jail and beats the shit out of his partner, and So he finds him in like a McDonald's somewhere and just beats the shit out of him all over the place and gets the standing ovation, the hero's ovation. He goes back, he finds the kid that he turns down when the kid comes up for the autograph, and he turns him down. He finds that kid and gives him the sword, and um, he kind of goes around and tries to right all the wrongs that he had done, and just kind of is literally the end of the movie is him tying up loose ends. Before the inevitable happened when he dies. He gets hit by the truck in the end, but um you know to me that's heroic. I think of him as a very heroic character, and I think, like I said, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Romero has said that's his most personal film, and I look at King Billy and I see George Romero, and George Romero is my hero. So I think that's why I got him so high on the list. What do you guys think? Should he be on the list? Zombie Grease. I've always wondered about Romero's fascination with motorcycles, from Night Riders to land motorcycles. Yeah, I mean, even when you go back, you look at the amusement park. There's a motorcycle gang in amusement park. You look at Martin. There's a motorcycle gang. I wouldn't call them a gang, but there's a lot of guys on motorcycles in Martin. Dawn of the Dead, of course, motorcycles. There's the biker gang at the end of Dawn of the Dead. There's motorcycles. The funny thing about Night Riders, though, is that Romero actually wrote the original script. The original script was called Nights, and it was just a straight ahead. I mean, it took place. I think it was they were, instead of jousting on motorcycles, they were just still jousting on horses. But he was trying to sell that idea to Sal Hassanine at the time, and I think it was his company that said, I don't know about that. I don't know if that's going to do it. And then I think, just out of a joke, Romero said, "Well, I'll have him joust on motorcycles then, if that's not exciting enough." And they were kind of like, "Yeah, that's a great idea. You should put them on motorcycles." And then Romero was just kind of like, "Fuck, I was just kind of making a joke." But I think over time, Romero fell in love with that idea of them being on motorcycles, so he changed the name to Night Riders and put them on motorcycles. So yeah, that's funny. That it's literally something I Saturday Night Live where it's like, "That's a great idea. Put them on motorcycles." And then Romero was just like, "Well, that's stupid." But actually, when you think about that could be pretty cool. So, um, Jimmy Hal Holbrook and for Creepshow was awesome, playing opposite Adrian Barbeau. Yeah. Like I said, just watched that new Creepshow 4K. I thought about putting him on, but is it really heroic for him to kill his wife? Maybe it is. I don't know. I did have her on the top 10 villains, so I mean, I guess you could count her as a villain. So would that make Henry the hero? Maybe. I don't know. Zombie Grease. William Friedkin, who directed The Exorcist, has that shot of motorcycles, and he mentioned that they represented danger, something frightening. That's a really good point. Maybe there is something to that. Yeah, definitely could be something to that. I've never thought of it that way, but yeah, because there is something. I mean, there is. Like I think I know people that have died on motorcycles. Motorcycles are dangerous, and there's something about the stunts and all that in Night Riders. It's like the stunts are amazing in Night Riders, and some of them you're just watching, you're like, God damn, So yeah, maybe that was something. There was something to that with Romero's fascination with motorcycles. Um, Yeah, never thought of it that way. That is a great point. All right. Top 2. Who's coming in at number 2? I think there's 2 names on here that I haven't mentioned yet that I think everyone's kind of pretty sure that have to be on this list. But which order are they in? What order are they in? Went back and forth, and it was a little tough. This list in general was pretty damn tough to come up with, for a number of reasons. But in terms of the all-time best Romero hero, I had to put this character at number 2. I love the character, and she's up there, but I got to put Lori Cardille as Sarah from Day of the Dead at number 2. So Day of the Dead came in at number 2 this time. So we got a new new film at number 1. But yeah, Laurie Cardille as Sarah in Day of the Dead. Definitely a heroic character. The one character in the film that's kind of keeping it all together at this point, mentally trying to. She kind of cracks at the end, and that's when I think she just decides to join up with the other guys, uh, John and McDermott, and just kind of say, "Fuck it, let's just get the hell out of here and find an island somewhere." But she's fighting for what she believes in. She's fighting for a cause. She's fighting to, and like I mentioned earlier with Logan, was Logan really interested in saving humanity, or was he more interested in training a pet? Having a zombie pet. He's so fucking gone. He's far gone. He's lost his mind. He just wants to prove that he can train one of these motherfuckers. And Laurie's still fighting the good fight. Her and Fisher, played by JHann Movies, they're still fighting the good fight, trying to save humanity. She stands up. She's really the one character, maybe other than Logan, but she's really the one character that will stand up to Rhodes and fight back against his bullshit. But yeah, she's the main hero in this film. She's trying to save everybody in this film. She's trying to save Miguel from just completely cracking up and losing his mind. She's trying to save the world. She's her and Fisher, Dr. Fisher, kind of the two sane ones in the film. Dr. Fisher's character is kind of a straight character, straight ahead. It's an interesting character. It's really not one of my favorite characters. And JHann Movies, I love JHann Movies as an actor. I just never got what's the point of Fisher in the film? I guess it's just kind of a bit of a sidekick to Sarah until the end. But you can't argue with the fact that in terms of, especially just looking at the history of females in horror, and really women in Romero's films, Sarah is at the time you had Sigourney Weaver and Aliens, and you were starting to see stronger female heroic characters. I guess you could put Jamie Lee Curtis and Halloween in that list. But in terms of just badass, machine gun rocking, no bullshit female hero roles, you got to look at Laurie Cardille in Day of the Dead as one of the first in horror. She's kind of playing. I mean, you got to think back at the time in 1985, we were looking at all these male action heroes, your Stallones, your Schwarzeneggers. I don't know if Jean-Claude Van Damme had really hit big at that point, but you had your Charles Bronsons and your Clint Eastwoods, and there was always, So then comes Laurie Cardille playing Sarah, the most straight-headed one, and she's just surrounded by nothing but psychotic men. So she's the one kind of keeping it together and fighting the good fight. So I think just in terms of just of what she meant, and of course, it leads to Patricia Tallman as Barbara in Night of the Living Dead 90. Kind of takes Sarah a step too far, in my opinion. I'm not the biggest fan of what they did with Barbara in Night 90, to be honest with you. They just made it a little too far for my liking. But I think Sarah's right, perfect. Laurie Cardille's performance as Sarah is just right in Day of the Dead. She's not I am woman, hear me roar. She's she's not overly overly compensating, I guess. But yeah, I just I can't say enough about her performance and just her as a person. I mean, if you ever meet her at a convention, Laurie Cardille is one of the nicest people that you will ever meet at a horror convention. So cool. I've almost been killed on one, and I know 2 people who have died on one. Talking about motorcycles again, yeah, they're dangerous, and I see people all the time. It drives me fucking nuts. I see people without helmets. I've seen guys with no shirts, nothing, just cruising down fucking highway. just like what, like I'm just not dumb enough to do that, I guess. Sarah is definitely one of my faves. Day is so damn good. Yeah, yeah. Um, uh, very creepy when Bub mumbles, "I'm not finished." I've heard something about that. When does he say that? When is that? 'Cause I've never heard it, but I've heard people mention that before. Where he kind of mumbles something. Where is that supposed to be? I'm gonna have to go back and watch that and see if I hear it. Um, Logan was giving us the idea of what to do with zombies in the future. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's definitely one way to look at it. But I mean, realistically, are you really going to put that? Are you really going to have the time to dedicate to training each and every zombie that's out there? I mean, really, the more reasonable thing to do is what Rhodes wants to do, which is blow the piss out of them. Just go out and just unload and try to take out as many as you can, and kind of what they do in Land of the Dead, fortify a spot and just kind of, you know. So, I mean, they definitely could be useful tools. I think they elaborate that on a little bit. Um, in the original Day of the Dead screenplay that Romero wanted to do originally, where they kind of train like an army of zombies to kind of go out and about, where they can gather supplies and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, I mean yeah, definitely. If it could have worked, I mean Logan's discovery or whatever you want to call it would have been absolutely a heroic thing. We would have given him the Nobel Peace Prize if that thing still existed at that time. Um, so yeah, good point. Good point. Tony Todd was great in Night 90, and also he was in Oliver Stone's Platoon. Yeah, Tony Todd's great in pretty much everything I've ever seen him do. Um, the Crow. I mean, Candyman. I mean, God, dude, his performance in Candyman, just his voice alone, perfect for that. I haven't seen the remake, so I don't know what they do with that. And I've heard he's in it, but it's like a CG thing or something. I'm not sure, but yeah, love Tony Todd. He was great in Night 90. I will say that I'm not a big fan of, like I said, Patricia Tallman in Night 90 as Barbara, but I did think that Tony Todd did a fantastic job as Ben. Although I do think that Tony Todd kind of lost a little bit of Ben's vulnerability um, that Dwayne Jones's performance had. Just because I think Tony Todd's a little bigger, more imposing. I've seen Tony Todd in person. He's a very big and imposing guy. Um, so when they take away the music, I believe he definitely says it. When they take away the music. Oh, okay, I get it. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and I have to. Oh yeah, yeah. Now that you say that, I'm thinking back on that scene now, and I can definitely hear him saying, "I'm not finished" or something. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that. I'm gonna have to go back and see that if I can really pinpoint it. So here we are, top of the top of the pops, the number one hero, the greatest hero in all of Romero's films. Let's go back down the list here. Number 10, I got Lincoln Mizell as Cuda and Martin. Number 9, Gary Lottie as Sir Alan in Night Riders. Number 8, Simon Baker as Riley in Land of the Dead. Number 7, Terry Alexander and Jarlath Conroy as John and McDermott in Day of the Dead. Number 6, W.G. McMillan as David in The Crazies. Number 5, Scott Reiniger as Roger in Dawn of the Dead. Number 3, I had Ed Harris as King Billy in Night Riders. Number 2, Laurie Cardille as Sarah in Day of the Dead. And number 1, if you haven't figured it out yet, I think it's fairly easy to say. It's this guy right here, Ken Foray as Peter in Dawn of the Dead. What else can I say? I mean, I think it's the obvious choice at this point. Peter is definitely the most heroic character in any Romero film. Saving everyone at the tenement from Wooly. That's where it started. He ends up coming up with the plan to. I mean, he was the leader of that group, the main 4. He was the one that had the answers. He had been there, done that. He was everything that every archetype of a hero at the time was. He was the Schwarzenegger role. He was the Clint Eastwood. He was the leader of the crew. Always had the answers. Um, Now, was there definitely some flaws to his character? Absolutely, but he was definitely the least flawed character out of the bunch. And maybe you could put Galen Ross on this list. Fran, um, maybe not quite the hero that Peter was, but I think like I said, just using the the analogy of like when we played Dawn of the Dead as kids, it's like everybody wanted to either be Peter or Roger, and Peter was that's the one that I identified with the most growing up. I always had the plan. Um, so I don't know, that definitely, he's personally my top favorite hero. Now, of course, you can make arguments for Ben. You can make arguments for Sarah. Um, and hell, some people may prefer Roger to Peter. But I think when it all came down, I think Peter was one of those characters, just one of those guys that always had to be working to achieve something. And I think you really see by the end of Dawn of the Dead, he's kind of just not happy anymore. And I think when the biker gang comes, I think it kind of gets his juices going. I think when he's like pulling the rings off and throws them down on all the money and all the bullshit that he's been spending his time on, I think and he zips up and he's like he's ready for fucking action. He's ready to go. Now, was it the right decision to go down and try to close all the gates and fuck with the bikers? Maybe not. Maybe not. There's a debate to be had there. But he's definitely a character that even when Flyboy, when he thinks when he pretty much knows that Flyboy's a goner, he's heard the bites, he's heard Flyboy screaming, he knows he's a goner, but he hears gunshots and there's still something about him. He wants to go back and save Flyboy. Now, the end of Dawn of the Dead, there's the original ending of Dawn of the Dead had Peter shooting himself, just giving up. But I think that would have been the wrong move, because Peter through this whole thing is kind of the steady hand, just straight ahead. Roger ends up losing it, making the wrong decisions, and that caused his demise. Flyboy ended up losing it, making all the wrong decisions, which led to his demise. Peter, that didn't happen with Peter. He never lost his cool. He never he never gave up. Even when he thought about it at the end, if he would have pulled that trigger and Dawn would have ended the way that it was originally written to end, he probably wouldn't be as high on this list, to be honest with you. But the fact that he does not give up, continues to fight, makes it to the chopper. I mean, he's got the heroic John Wayne music at the end of the movie, for God's sake. Never gave up. So he stuck with it. And I think that's a heroic thing to do. And I think that's a good message for all of us out there, is just don't give up. Like, there's always tomorrow. Even if the dawn does include the dead. I don't know. I was trying to think of a better play on words there, but yeah, never give up. Maybe you'll live long enough to live in a little trailer in a limestone cave with a bunch of crazy military guys and a bunch of crazy scientists. Maybe you'll live that long to experience that. So yeah, Ken Foray as Peter, my number one greatest Romero hero. What do you guys think? Agree? Disagree? Here we go. Matt in the house. What's up, buddy? Drum roll. Peter, couldn't be anyone else. Couldn't be anyone else. Zombie Grease, Peter is the definite leader and has a lot of humanity. He has the best lines as well. He carries Dawn. Great list. Yeah. And that's the thing, too, his humanity. He kind of has... Peter, at some point at the beginning of Dawn of the Dead, has to kind of kill his own humanity when he goes down in the cellar and he's got they had... where they kept all the zombies, and he's just there executing them one by one. It's not a jubilant thing for Peter. It's a very hurtful thing. Even though they are zombies, they're gone. He knows that it's over for him. Just the fact that he's standing there and the tears coming out of his eyes, it's tough for him. And I think that's a lot of a lot of horror movies, a lot of zombie movies, especially the sense of humanity. Um, it's not there quite as emphatically as it was with Kim Fore's portrayal as Peter. Um, and of course he goes, which Matt Peter has a great arc. Starts out as a hard ass, but by the end he's making dinner for Steven and Fran. Yeah, that is funny. Yeah, at first he's kind of the strong, silent type. I got this, and then by the end of it, he's you know playing fucking tennis on the roof and serving dinner for Steven and Fran. So, but yeah, just like you said, that our hero should be somebody that you grow up wanting to be, to kind of maybe you don't want to be just like them, but you want to kind of put their beliefs or the way that they go about their business. You kind of want to apply that to your daily life, and like I said, Peter never gave up, fought to the very end. Even when he thought about it, he didn't do it. I would have. This is my mall. All right. So there you go. There you have it, folks. And that is the thing too. Peter was the one that kind of came up with the idea originally. It's like, maybe we got a good thing going here. Maybe we shouldn't be in such a hurry to leave. So, was that the right decision? Was that the wrong decision? We go back. We talk about Ben. Does that hurt his credibility as a hero? Does he make the wrong decision, right decision? Obviously, I think that's the right decision. They bought them. I think if you look in the film, in the scene where Fran's coming out, it's like later in the film, Fran's coming out of the room, and you see the calendars on the side of the wall. You can see that they have been at the mall for 3 months at that period. So, literally doing what Peter suggested they do and fortify the mall and stay there and all that probably bought them way more time than if they would have continued down the chopper, because who knows what would have happened. They barely survived the fucking airport. There was like 4 or 5 zombies there. So I mean, just as the world continued to collapse around them, that was probably the right move to just kind of find a spot, fortify it, stay there, and live to fight. So that bought him more time. So I think that answers that question. I think Peter made the right decision by suggesting that. But yeah, I appreciate everybody checking in tonight. This is a fun list to go through, fun list to do. Finally, glad we were able to get it out of the way. There weren't fireworks lighting up the night sky. I'm telling you, I those fucking fireworks, unbelievable last week. I've never seen anything like it. I guess they do this in our neighborhood. This is the first 4th of July that we've lived in this house, in this neighborhood. And I wonder if they do this every year, but they blew, had to be at least $10,000 worth of fucking big time fireworks here. And I'm sitting here and I'm trying to go through the list talking about goddamn W.G. McMillan as David and the Crazies. And outside you just hear, and it's just like, I lost my mind. I couldn't form a fucking sentence. I couldn't make sense halfway through this thing. So I had to cut it off. I'm glad I waited until tonight. No fireworks. It's been fun compiling this list. But yeah, like I said, next week doing a stream Sunday night, remembering Romero. It's the 6-year anniversary of George's death. So I'm going to open up the floor. If anybody wants to join, hop on here with me. You are more than welcome to. Just hit me up. I'll actually just put the link in the comments next weekend. So if anybody wants to just hop on in, tell some George stories, let us know. Just shoot the shit about the man himself. Like I said, it's been 6 years. I remember specifically, very vividly, where I was and what I was doing when I found the news. So yeah, it'll suck, kind of reliving that again, I guess. But that's not what I want to do next week. I want to kind of tell stories and like I said, kind of go through my origin story of how I became such a Romero film. But anybody wants to hop on with me next week, you're more than welcome to. and we'll just shoot the shit and celebrate the man himself the way we should. So that's going to do it for me tonight, guys. I appreciate everybody in the chat tonight. Zombie Grease, Jimmy, Matt, Duckman. What was that? Duck Dog? I think it was his name, Duck Dog. First time I've seen him in here in the chat. Welcome to it, buddy. But yeah, been a fun one. I appreciate everybody checking it out. And until the next time, stay scared, everybody. Have a good night.